So, Mr. Mayor-elect, I'm actually tempted to ask you to rap what your first day in office would be like. But since there are so many pressing issues, I think we're going to get right
we'll
to
cut
it.
through it.
No rap. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, have you changed since you got elected? Have you changed mentally? Have your view of yourself changed?
I think physically I likely have a few more gray hairs than I did when I first started running.
But mentally, I mean, do you look at yourself differently now that you actually are going to be the mayor of all these people?
I think in many ways I see myself as the same. I see myself as a New Yorker who loves the city. I think there are other things in my life that have changed where in the past I would just think of taking the train or riding a bike or getting on the bus.
Those days are over.
And just having to do it on my own and not having to worry about anything else beyond that. Now these are negotiations. These are things I have to plan out in advance because of security, because of the platform, the position. But it just means that you take the time to do that so you keep living your life as a New Yorker.
Are you mentally ready for this?
I feel ready.
So I have to ask you, you met with a group of rabbis on Thursday to talk about your positions on the Jewish state and Israel and other things. And one of the rabbis, Ami Hirsch, wasn't won over by your positions because he thinks it's important for Israel to be recognized as a Jewish state. And he put out a statement that said that the anti-Zionist rhetoric and anti-Israel policies will threaten Jewish safety in New York City and will inevitably lead to an unproductive and tense relationship with the Jewish community. What Mr. Mamdani says and which policies he pursues could affect the fact that the Jewish community will energetically oppose any and all anti-Israel rhetoric and actions. How do you feel about that when you have this man trying to take shots at you before you even take the oath of office?
Well, look, I think that Rabbi Hirsch is entitled to his opinions. I appreciated the meeting that I had with a number of rabbis where we spoke about my commitment to keeping each and every Jewish New Yorker safe, but also celebrating and cherishing them in their city. And that's part of a larger commitment to each and every New Yorker. And also in these conversations, we not only talk about the importance of taking on anti-Semitism across the 5 boroughs, but also on delivering on a number of other issues of concern, because as a number of rabbis spoke to me about the affordability agenda, so many other aspects of city life, they continue to be things that they hear about from their congregants.
I guess the question is whether you buy his argument that your failure to say Israel should exist as a Jewish state will somehow add to more anti-Semitism and more attacks on Jews. And I wonder if you worry about that or you think that's a specious argument.
Well, I've found that the conversations I've had with Jewish leaders across the 5 boroughs have been ones that we are looking to build a relationship to deliver for this city. And just the day before I had that meeting with the New York Board of Rabbis, I was with a number of members of the Satmar community in Brooklyn, in Crown Heights, and in Williamsburg, as thousands of us were celebrating together. And I think it showcases a vision of this city and the positions that I've made clear on Israel and on Palestine. These are part of universal beliefs of equal rights and the necessity of it for all people everywhere.
But it's also part of your DNA and how you grew up, believing that there should be a 2-state solution or that there should be one area.
Well, what I grew up believing is that every single person should be entitled to the same rights and that equality should be something enshrined in the law. And what I've said is that my inability to say what Rabbi Hirsch would like me to say comes from a belief that every state should be of equal rights, whether we're speaking about Israel or Saudi Arabia or anywhere in the world.
So you ran as an activist, as an ideologue. Running a city requires compromise. Are you prepared to do that? And do you understand that it might not always be the positions that you have started out with?
I think this will be a difficult job. There's no question about it. John Lindsay once said it's the second most difficult job in the United States. But I also think there have been many who have failed to even try to deliver for working class New Yorkers. They have left the discussion at the door, when in fact what we need to do is make City Hall a place that is fighting for working people. Because for all of the coverage of me as the first mayor of this background or the first mayor of that kind, I found that for many New Yorkers, the only first that they are thinking about is the first of the month, because it's still just as unaffordable as it was at the beginning of this campaign. They want a mayor who's going to look at that and say, that's going to be my focus.
But one of the things that propelled you to this office was your incredible use of social media platforms and the creative commercials that you did. I wonder, and your grassroots campaign, you're organizing, I wonder if given the things that you're going to have to push through, you're going to use the same kinds of platforms, social media, grassroots organizing, in order to win friends and influence people in Albany, Washington, and of course the City Council.
I think we absolutely have to continue to communicate with New Yorkers through every single platform we have available, and that means social media, because that's how many New Yorkers are engaging with the world around them. And we have to keep bringing New Yorkers into our politics. I don't want this to be a moment where we turn back to New Yorkers and say, thank you for electing me, now just trust me to do the work. I want those New Yorkers to keep coming with me to work. And even in this transition, typically a transition is a time when you turn to very few people, ask them to give you very large amounts of money. We've turned to people across the city, and we've received more than 30,000 donations, with a median donation of $25, which is a far cry from the median donations we've seen in previous administrations, but it's all part of that same vision of politics is something for the people and with the people.
So after you won, the Mamdani effect was supposed to drive people out of New York, and that hasn't happened. And in fact, more people are buying apartments. But I wonder, what do you want the Mamdani effect to evolve into as you take the reins of power and you start making decisions at City Hall?
I want the effect to be that we make the most expensive city in America one that's affordable. I want the effect to be that aspiring for a decent and dignified life in this city is not considered something beyond the possibility. And I want the effect to be that every New Yorker looks at their own city and sees themselves in it. And, you know, I have been working in and around City Hall now since the election victory. And recently one of my phones stopped working. I went to an AT&T store just opposite City Hall. And the man working across from me, he said, "You look like a regular." I said, "No, I actually haven't been here before." He said, "You look like somebody who's walked across the store." I said, "Maybe you might have seen me." And then I told him, "I'm going to be the mayor on January 1st. And he apologized. I said, "There's nothing to apologize for." And then he told me about his life. He said, every day he wakes up, he just thinks about his job. When he's getting to work, he's thinking about work. He's at work, he's thinking about work. He goes home, he's thinking about the next day at work. And there's so many New Yorkers that, for them, politics, no matter how close City Hall is to their job, it has nothing to do with them. We want to make the effect that people see themselves in the focus of City Hall.
Do you ever have so many self-doubts? But you've taken on a lot. Yeah. Do you have self-doubts that you can accomplish all this?
I feel excited, frankly. I feel for all of the language around pressure and burden, I think we often lose sight of the opportunity where when we win in governing, we transform people's lives, and that's something that for too long we haven't even attempted.
So what do you think the life experiences that you've had have prepared you to lead a city of almost 9 million people and to guide them to have a good life?
I think key to it is the experience of actually focusing on the issues that working class New Yorkers are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. You know, before I was an assembly member, I was a foreclosure prevention housing counselor. I worked with low to moderate income homeowners in Queens. And I recall then working with clients who, if you zoomed out and saw their life, you'd say, this person's living a good middle-class life. They have a union job and they have a house that they own. But the closer you get to it, you realize even them, they are just one emergency away from missing a mortgage payment and being foreclosed on. And that precarity that many New Yorkers are living with, it often feels like City Hall doesn't see it. And we're going to bring that focus and that recognition.
So I have to ask you about a little controversy that's happening.
Come on, it wouldn't be the news if we didn't do that.
The soccer fans are quite upset about FIFA and the new price of tickets that are a lot higher than they have been promised.
Yes.
Some were promised $21, $60. These are going to be as much as $180 or $300. And they wonder, can you do anything about it? And are you going to appoint a soccer czar to do this, or are you going to do it yourself?
I am going to appoint a World Cup czar because I think at the core of it, I'm so excited at the fact that we are going to be hosting 8 games across the World Cup next summer, including the final. And I also understand why soccer fans feel the way they do. They have a right to. We're talking about a final that will be here in New York City and New Jersey.
Can you do anything about prices?
Yes, this is going to be me using my platform to speak up to FIFA at every opportunity. Because it's not just what you said, Marcia. The cheapest ticket to the World Cup final, which will be here in New York City and New Jersey, according to the Croatian Federation, is $4,000.
Right.
$4,000.
That's a huge amount of money.
That is 5 times.
Nobody can go.
Who can go to that? And that's 5 times more expensive than it was to go
So what
to
do
the
you want
final
the price
in Qatar.
to be?
I want the price to be something that's affordable. This, you'd have to mortgage your house to be able to afford that for a lot of people. And when it was last in the United States, you could get to the final in California for less than $200. That needs to be what we're looking for.
So on that note, we're going to take a break, but we are going to be right back. We are back with Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. So I have to ask you, what, if anything, surprised you about your meeting with President Trump?
You know, I didn't expect that we would be talking about ULURP in the Oval Office, but we did. We spoke about ULURP, we spoke about As of Right, we spoke about community boards, we spoke about housing again and again and again.
Did you like them?
I appreciated the meeting. It was a productive meeting. I think for all of the lead up to the meeting, it was discussed as the president meeting the next mayor.
But you've spoken to him since then?
I have spoken to the president since then.
And has it been productive? Do you feel like there's I hate to say the word friend, but do you feel you have somebody who will listen to you?
I felt that it's been productive, and it's been productive because in each conversation that we've had, whether in the Oval Office or since, it's been a conversation that comes back to housing and comes back to how can we make the city more affordable.
So is politics sort of like pro wrestling, where people, no, listen, people act out their roles in public. I hate you, I'm going to punch you, you're whatever. But away from the cameras, they're actually friends?
I wouldn't say so, at least for me. I believe everything that I say in public, but I'm willing to work with anyone to make it better for the public.
But I mean, you do have people in politics, I don't want to say the name Trump, but I mean, there's been a lot of rhetoric leading up to your meeting, and I wonder if the rhetoric is just for the public consumption, but in private you get along.
Well, for me, what I say in public is also what I would say in private. These are things that I actually believe. I also think, however, that oftentimes politics has been less about people and more about self. And if you actually want to deliver for the people of the city, you have to work with everyone to do so.
So my next question is this. I wonder what your government's going to look like. Have you picked, for example, an education commissioner, for example, that you might want to say?
That I might want to have waited until this moment. No, I haven't yet made a decision on schools chancellor, but it will be one of the most important positions in our administration.
How important is the charter school issue to you?
Look, I think any school in the city is important to me, and I am focused on picking a chancellor who understands their responsibility to deliver a high quality of public education for each and every student. And what we're seeing right now, Marcia, is that we're in the 9th consecutive year of more than 100,000 public school students being homeless. These are just one of the challenges we have to take on. That's why we've been conducting interviews to fill that position. We'll be making that decision sometime soon, and I'll be sure to share it as soon as we have information.
So I guess the reason I'm asking the question about charter schools is there is a move afoot by some of the charter people to want to expand the number of charter schools you could have in New York City, raise the cap. Is that something you would be behind, or you would say, let's focus on public education, or both?
I would say let's focus on the schools that we have right now, and let's do the work of improving education across this city first.
Because, you know, a lot of parents, especially in minority communities, when their kids get into a charter school, they say they've died and gone to heaven because they think charter schools have been more effective. Do you think that's an argument that you agree with?
I think the argument that I'm concerned about is any parent who thinks that the school that's closest to them is not giving the right level of quality education. And there are too many parents I've heard who've talked to me about living in certain parts of the city simply because of the schools that they could have for their kids. I want it to be a city where no matter where you live, you're going to have a high quality of public education. I think that also comes back to a chancellor, but also a system. I mean, right now, Marcia, we have a system where we spend about $40 billion a year in the DOE. About $10 billion of that money goes to contracts and consultants. And some of those contracts are incredibly important, but there is also the issue of duplication, of waste, and one of my focuses is going to be how do we cure procurement? How do we actually start to streamline these processes, save money that we can then reinvest back into the classroom for the benefit of our children? So
you're backing Brad Lander as a candidate to run for Congress, and you are faced with 3 other situations. Richie Torres is being challenged by a candidate from the DSA, and also Michael Blake, who backed you in the mayor's race. And there are 2 open seats where there's some pressure to back more progressive left of center candidates. I know there's going to be pressure on you to make a decision, but my question to you is this. Do you think it's important to change the political bent of the people who represent us in Washington? Is that something that's going to be a goal of your administration?
I think the goal of my administration is to deliver on the affordability agenda and to work with partners who will do so. And one of the reasons that I endorsed Brad Lander for his congressional run is because he has been a partner in that work. He's someone who is sincere. He's someone who's been a leader of the city. And I think that New Yorkers would be well served by him continuing to be a leader in the city.
So the reason I asked the question, and it gets back to the question of Israel, that a lot of the people who are running are not happy with the amount of weapons that the United States gives to Israel. And I wonder if that's something that concerns you, because many Jews feel that if the weapons are cut, especially the weapons that fund Iron Dome, which is a missile system that allows them to shoot attack missiles out of the sky, that this could endanger the safety of Israel. I wonder if that's something that you're worried about.
What am I worried about?
I mean, are you worried that you could elect people from New York who would not support new weapon sales to Israel, which could affect their security?
Well, what I'm worried about, frankly, is each and every New Yorker being able to afford life in this city, and also each and every New Yorker being able to believe in a city, in a country, and in a world where we have some consistency on human rights. And I've heard from New Yorkers, including many Jewish New Yorkers, of their frustration with how we have continued to spend billions of dollars in tax dollars funding these kinds of weapons shipments. And I know that that's something of immense, immense concern. And I think that what New Yorkers want to see is consistency. They want tax dollars not to violate human rights, but rather to support the delivery of those rights.
So you're going to move to Gracie Mansion, you and your wife. I'm wondering, is your wife going to have a seat at the table much as Shirlane McRae had a seat at the table and pushed her Thrive mental health program?
My wife is going to continue to be an artist. She's going to have a role not only in my life, but in speaking about the arts, but any specifics of that is still something to be determined.
I just wondered if she had some specific issue that she thought she would want to have a role in, not only as First Lady, but as a spokesperson for her beliefs.
I can't say as yet about a role, but I will tell you that at any opportunity she has, she speaks about the importance of the arts, and it's something that has stayed with me as well.
Has she given you a sense of the importance of the arts?
She has. I think one of the things I love most about her is that her view of the world where beauty and art is to be found in everyday things, not just things that you find in a museum.
So you have also, moving to Gracie Mansion, because there's also security concerns, and you have had death threats. Are you worried that those death threats are going to continue? And do you think that your parents should also get police protection to make sure that everybody in your family is safe?
I am at the very least thankful that for now these threats are focused on my life and not on the life of my family. And obviously they continue to concern me. I'm thankful for the NYPD to protecting me and my wife over the course of this period. And that is a large part also of why we made the decision to move to Gracie Mansion, because of the level of security required and also how that would inconvenience many of my neighbors in Astoria, a neighborhood that I love dearly but will be leaving shortly.
But those death threats were really horrible to get, weren't they?
They are. I mean, they speak to a vision of a city that doesn't have room for all of us. And I think they are most terrifying when they have less to do with you and more to do with people that you love. Because I made the decision to run to be the next mayor of this city. No one else made that decision.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. We are back with Zohran Mamdani, and I'd like to ask you a few questions. So, what's something New Yorkers don't know about you?
Something New Yorkers don't know about me. I feel like New Yorkers know pretty much everything there is to know about me.
Oh, come on, there must be something.
I tried to keep some things for mystery, but people even know each of the story of the rings that I wear and the watch that I wear.
Tell me about the rings.
Okay, here, I can tell you about the rings. This is a ring that my grandfather used to wear. When he passed away, I started to wear it to remember him. This is a ring that my wife got for me when she went to Tunisia. This is a wedding ring, because I'm married to my wife. This is my watch that my wife got me, and now I see people advertising this watch. Please know that you're not sending any of us money when you buy it.
When you move to Gracie Mansion, will you get a pet? A dog, a cat, a bird?
My wife loves cats.
Are you going to get a cat?
And that is the hope. That is
what
the
kind
hope.
Of a cat?
We don't know yet. I'm currently allergic, but I'm going to start getting my shots.
I myself am about to get a cat, so I feel your pain.
Yeah.
What's the last thing you learned?
The last thing I learned, You know, when I went in for my allergy test, I learned that I wasn't just allergic to cats, but also I had a birch tree allergy, which makes sense because I always have been unable to eat certain fruits, but I didn't realize what it was.
So now you can't eat fruits.
Well, I've always struggled
So
to...
now people don't know that you're allergic to fruits.
If you want to really make my life uncomfortable, give me an
So
apple.
how do you blow off steam? And I wonder if that changed since you became mayor.
I love to go bowling. I'm not very good at it.
You bowl?
Yes.
Big balls? Those big...
Yeah, I go bowling. You
Yeah.
know, aiming for a strike or a spare, but oftentimes settling for
And
an
how
8
do
or
you
a 9.
do? Like, what's your average score?
I'm not great. I'm not going to share the average score.
I
here.
myself have nails, so it's very hard for me to do
I have a very
those, so-
intricate run-up, but it's not a great
So
outcome.
you can still play soccer?
I hope so, but I have to tell you that...
With the talking headers? I bet you didn't think I knew that.
No, I realize everybody knows that now. You know, I am, for all the talk about my youth, we made a video recently where I clicked my heels, I jumped up, and then when I landed, I actually tweaked my knee for a few days, so I'm feeling some of the effects of age.
How would you convince someone who wants to leave the city to stay?
This is the greatest city in the world, and that they should give us a chance from January 1st to show that we're going to build the greatest city government that they've seen, to actually continue to deliver a quality of life that makes it worthwhile to keep living here.
So what was your most memorable birthday?
Wow. I'd have to say it was this one, because typically people haven't cared that much about my birthday, but
Well,
now
but when you went from 33 to
33,
34, that was a
34.
big deal.
And I did that because people wanted me to grow older.
What's one thing your parents bugged you about when you were a child?
My parents did not let me watch TV on weekdays. They made very clear about that.
I have 2 more questions.
Those are 2.
First of all, what's the last time you admitted being wrong?
Last time I admitted being wrong. I'd say probably yesterday with my wife.
Yesterday?
Yes.
How were you wrong?
I was wrong. I think my wife was trying to focus on something and I was trying to bother her. And then I said, you know, I was wrong. I should have let you do that work.
What's your least favorite vegetable?
My least favorite vegetable. I don't want to alienate the vegetable lobby, but probably broccoli.
Broccoli?
Probably.
Oh, there was a president who didn't like broccoli. I think it was George Bush. What can I tell you?
Didn't think we'd have that in common.
And on that note, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
And thank you at home for joining us as well.